everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of 51 Stories of Emotional Wellbeing with Emotional Ability Resources. Today, I'm very happy to have with me Deb Love, a beautiful and very inspirational lady. Deb is a lifelong spiritual seeker, adventure lover, conservation professional, and a single mother of two wonderful teenagers. She lives in Montana, where she works to ensure people have access to clean air, water, and a connection to the natural world. So welcome to my show, Deb.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about your journey, Deb.
I grew up the youngest of 7 children in a Catholic home. I had a lot going on all the time, but I ended up just finding myself out in the natural world, seeking solace in nature. And that stayed with me my whole life. I ended up, as you noted, starting a career in conservation. And that's been my life's purpose, is really to connect people to nature. But, I would say I was spiritual growing up. Going to church, I was religious. I wasn't necessarily spiritual, but it has been something that has stayed with me through my whole life. I began meditating and going to yoga in college, but really as I got older, my practice deepened, and for me, it was the inward journey that really helped me become embodied and just really allowed me to ensure that everything I do is sort of in sync with my true purpose.
That's wonderful. So any stories of resilience that you can remember that have shaped you into the woman that you are today?
Sure. Resilience is a great word. I was just talking to my daughter about that, who's in college, and I just today was letting her know how important resilience is, because we all fall down. And we all have cracks, and it's those cracks where the light is able to shine through. I will share. For a long time, I was on a path. I was determined. I wanted to succeed. I worked in a bank at age 15. I was in the finance club. I got into one of the top business schools in the country. I took that passion even to conservation and was driving. And in my 30s, I took a year-long leadership development course, thinking, oh, this will be good for me, right? Not realizing that when you do that kind of leadership journey, you're starting from within. And it was that inward journey that I mentioned earlier that really began for me in my early 40s. And that's when I took a kind of more critical look at, who am I? How am I showing up at work? How am I showing up in my marriage and with my children? And I remember this moment in time where I took a 360-degree review, right? Where you get people who work with you and for you and around you to do an assessment of you. And I thought, well, this is great. I did my own personal review, and then they compare your perception of yourself versus others' perception of you. And I remembered seeing quite a difference between what I considered myself and how others viewed me. And I had been working with my then husband for 15 years, and we were kind of this power couple. And I realized reading this review that I was being reviewed as this power couple, as this team, not as who I really was. I was showing up as part of honestly a codependent relationship. And so it was that moment where I began to really start to look unflinchingly at my strengths and my weaknesses and my, light that I shine and the shadow. And I believe that's really when we all can come full face, when we look in the mirror and we see it all, and we stop trying to be what we think we need to be or someone we think we're supposed to be, and instead we accept who we are. And so it was a long journey. It took me a while to figure out I was in a marriage with someone who wasn't on that kind of journey, and who didn't share those same beliefs as I did. So the year I turned 50 was really when resilience would be a word that I would use to describe myself, because I found myself in a very powerful job. I was the head of a foundation. It was like a dream position. I was giving money away, and people were dying to talk to me because I controlled all this power. And I worked for just a very extremely difficult person, and my life was looking good on the outside, and it was really crumbling inside.
Mm-hmm.
And in the span of 1 year, I left that job, decided to take time for myself, took a journey to India, actually, and trekked in the Himalayas, and spent time with my children over the summer, and went to another leadership retreat, and really just gave time to myself to explore who I was, what I wanted to do. And by the end of that year, I was divorced, and I had left that job and thankfully found a wonderful new one. And then began life as a single mother with my 2 wonderful kids. And I have been so happy. I don't know what I look like on the outside in terms of like that facade that you're supposed to be. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I am exactly who I am, and I feel really content with who I am. And so it's just been an incredible journey. But I remember that 50th birthday thinking, wow, you know, I've kind of, at the time I had moved out of my house. I didn't have a house. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any of the trappings, and I was so happy. So I think for anyone who's going through a rough time, know that that is, you know, a part of life, and it's not a failure to struggle. It is, in fact, a sign that, you know, it's an opportunity for you to really connect with yourself and make sure that what you need is in alignment with your path, and that you're not trying to live a life that you think you're supposed to lead, or that you think someone else wants you to lead, or you're potentially with someone who's not good for you. Like, there are many reasons why we struggle, but I do believe that we live in a society that doesn't acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
those struggles, and it's really encouraging to see people like you who are able to connect with so many people and share these stories, so that we can see others that have gone through, you know, their challenges and emerged better for it.
Thank you, Deb. And like you rightly said, you know, we are so busy trying to live the life of what we perceive is how it's supposed to be, that we sometimes forget that the real cost is we and our own connection with ourselves. You know, we forget who we are, and we forget how to be content. And, you know, we are like, I'm supposed to be happy because it looks so good on paper. Yet inside, we are crumbling. And kudos to you to have the courage to really, you know, take a hard look at yourself and rise like a phoenix, you know.
Well, I think it's really important to just acknowledge that it's not easy to look at your faults, and to accept that, you know, you have weakness. I think none of us really grow up
Mm-hmm.
with that kind of ability to not only kind of take criticism
Mm-hmm.
or feedback, but to be able to give it to others as well. And for me, healthy conflict and being able to speak your truth to someone in a way that's not hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
but that's real, and then to really be open to others being able to speak to you that way, is something we can all work on. You know, it's a tool that we can work on that I think helps ensure that we are, in fact, true to ourselves. Because, you know, I look at teenagers, because I've got two,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on their journey, and teenagers these days, I sound old, but it's really a difficult time with social media occupying so much of their world, and the expectations that are associated with that, and the imaging, and trying to make yourself look a certain way online, and that disconnect with the natural world, or the disconnect with friends and family, is real. And then add on to that the terror of, you know, potential global war and environmental and climate collapse,
Mm-hmm.
and a pandemic. Like, there are just
Mm-hmm.
so many potentially scary things out there, that I think without that kind of inner resourcing, if we're externally focused, if we're looking somewhere else for validation, or looking somewhere else for the answers are all within us. Everything we need really is inside ourselves. And it just takes a practice of slowing down
Mm-hmm.
and tuning in. And I'll share my own practice. I shared that I grew up in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and that remains a really, really important part of my ability to be fully resourced and connected, is a chance to be out in the natural world. And I spent my whole life trying to ensure that people in the city have a city park, or a
Mm-hmm.
playground, or a trail. We all have an ability to get out and connect with the natural world. And one of the things I feel like the natural world provides is, when you are outside in nature,
Mm-hmm.
there's a sense of awe. There's a sense of the divine, and a sense of something so much greater than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of awareness
Mm-hmm.
of the just vastness of the universe, and kind of the assurance that our place in it, it's not in our head. You know, it's the voices in our head are what take us away from that connection we feel, whether it's in the natural world, or whether it's on a yoga mat, you know, on a meditation cushion, what have you. But that deeper connection to the quiet truths, I think that is really, I mean, for me, it's been the answer.
That was lovely. So, what are some emotional ability resources that you use on a regular basis to enhance your emotional well being? Nature, of course, you've spoken a lot about.
Yeah,
What else?
I think it's important to have a routine that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a morning meditation and yoga routine, and I know I'm supposed to do that right when I wake up. But for me, I like to make a cup of coffee, and I like to sit in bed with my journal. And I have a wonderful book that is got daily quotations.
Mm-hmm.
And so each day I take a look at that day's uh, entry, and then I journal for a while, and I'm able to kind of tease out, like, maybe it's what happened the previous day, or maybe it's where I want to go. But it just gives me a chance to start my day in a quiet, contemplative way. And then I hit my meditation cushion. I've really begun enjoying Kundalini yoga, which allows me to really focus a lot on my breath work, which I found to be really healing. And again, just simple meditation. I have a number of Buddhist teachers that I really enjoy, Pema Chodron, and I've been listening a lot to Tara Brach on Spotify. These are teachers that have free teachings
Mm-hmm.
that, when I wake up at 2 a.m. and can't get back to sleep, I turn on a meditation, or I go to a Calm app and I put on kind of either a meditation or a talk, and those help bring me back inside. So for me, it's like what works for each individual, but something that is consistent. And I think that's what I used to lack, was that consistency. I would go to a yoga class in a studio a few times a week, but I didn't have like a daily practice. And I think in my head, maybe there was some judgment that I should, and then I let go of the should. And I just invited in, and I acknowledged, yeah, I like my cup of coffee and I like to sit in bed with my journal, and that's okay.
I like that. So you freed yourself from the tyranny of shoulds, right?
Yes.
No shoulds, just invite
No
the
shoulds.
practice in. I like that. That was like wonderful. And who inspires you? Has there been any role model that you have looked up to? Otherwise, who inspires you?
That's a great question. Well, right now, my inspiration is coming from my kids, and watching them kind of step into themselves. So I have a soon to be 18-year-old and a soon to be 20-year-old. And my 20-year-old is now away in college. She's a sophomore, and it's been so remarkable to watch her journey as she's left the home and kind of finding herself. And there's a lot of identity seeking at this age, and I'm trying to encourage her to, you don't have to label anything. You can be who you are. But she really she's figuring it out, and she's figuring out what she's passionate about. And so, yeah, I would say right now it's really being in this position where I'm about to be an empty nester, and supporting those kids as they leave the house. And I've also been lucky enough to find a partner who is deeply present, and who shares my spiritual path with me. And when we met, we both realized that's the one non-negotiable in a partner, that we both need to be on a personal growth journey of some kind. And for me, that's been a transformational experience, because I had been with my former husband for 23 years, a long, long time. And it was lonely. So I would encourage your listeners to be mindful when you are meeting someone or with your partner. Take that time, to be present with one another, to encourage that journey inward and to support that journey together. I think I feel very fortunate to be in that place right now.
It's wonderful. And any stories that strike out in your mind when you felt that the going was too tough and you just wanted to give up, then you nurtured yourself back to being a woman of substance, and where you could just go on. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. I did share that, like, at one moment in time where it just felt like everything was kind of all the house of cards were falling. But I also felt like I had that inner resource then, so I knew like I was going to be okay. But there have been times in my life where I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. The year that I was getting married, and it was the year we were building our house. And I was a state director and building this house and planning this wedding. And I woke up one day and half my face was paralyzed. I had Bell's palsy, and it didn't go away. And I wasn't getting any more energized. And it turns out I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, which is a debilitating condition. And I was seeking all sorts of treatment, acupuncture and chiropractor anything I could get my hands on. And what I didn't want to hear was the simple truth that my body was telling me that I was doing too much. And I was just trying to be someone that I thought I was supposed to be, and pushing. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Eventually I did, but I remember at the time, I just wanted to fix. I just wanted somebody to just be able to give me a pill and make it all better, or, tell me what was going on. And because you can't really diagnose chronic fatigue without ruling out other things, it was a real struggle. And I guess the resources that I tapped into was finally listening to my body and having the sort of strength to back off. And it was a hard lesson learned, but one that I've kept with me. I'm much more attuned to that. I use the same resources then that I use now, which is being outside in nature and taking time for myself. But I'm also a passionate, I believe passionately in physical exertion and activity and exercise and adventure. And so having to slow down was really that was a challenge for me, because I would find myself getting wanting to go do these activities to bring me that joy, or to be able to help my mental health. So I think sometimes for people who are not able to do those physical things that they want to do, it can be quite challenging mentally and emotionally. And again, it just kind of came back to that slowing down. But more for me, it was more of a recognition of, I remember my acupuncturist saying, Deb, look at your face. Literally, you can't ignore this. The universe chose to make your face paralyzed because you weren't paying attention to anything else. So pay attention to your body, pay attention to what it's trying to tell you, and pay attention when your emotions, when you're unhappy or are struggling. Can you slow down and really tap into your heart? I would say the biggest lesson that I've ever learned in this regard, and this came slowly as well, was the lesson of self-compassion. And I now believe that it is the beginning and the end and everything in between. If we don't absolutely love ourselves, we cannot love others, we cannot be happy, we will never be fulfilled. And I think my journey was realizing that I had grown up in this huge family. I was the youngest. It was kind of like the runt of the litter, left behind, go play outside. But I was, all that striving was because I was searching externally for love and not recognizing that it was right here. So for me to really become that content, embodied person that I am now, it took literally a practice. I remember I had a massage therapist who said, I know it sounds silly, but I tell myself 100 times a day, I love you. And I was like, really? And he was like, try it. And so I would literally, I say to myself, I love you, Deb. I'm sitting in the dentist chair. They're drilling the other day. I love you, Deb. It's just a little reminder, and it sounds trite, but it's a reminder that it's all right here. And if you can have compassion for your struggles, for your challenges, for the things that life throws at you, and you're able to just completely, love and support yourself, you will be a better partner. You will be a better mother. You will be a better friend. because you can give love when you have it for yourself. And I feel like that is one of the things I see most in people who are struggling, is they have a hard time with that critic in their head.
That's true.
We are so, I ask my friends, would you ever speak to anyone the way you speak to yourself, that little voice in your head? And if you think about all those little comments that what critic says all day long, like, if you can just see that that is the ego talking, that is not your heart. That is not who you are. And you can find some distance between that critic and your true compassionate self. I think that's really where the magic happens.
So that was wonderful. I have a question for you, because, a
Yeah.
lot of people, we all know that, saying I love you to our own selves is very effective. But most people, they stop it, or they expect instant results. And that obviously does not happen. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about your journey into loving yourself. How long did it take you to really believe the I love yous that you told yourself 100 times a day?
Yeah, that's I think I'm still on that journey, right? I can't say that like that critic has stopped, because it's always there. So I think, like anything, it kind of comes back to what works for you. And this massage therapist had a note taped to his mirror at home, and I sometimes just put my hand on my heart. And I mentioned earlier listening to Tara Brach. It's BRACH. And she has a course that is available on Spotify.
Radical
and it's called
acceptance?
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, if I can just tap into that every once in a while, not always, but like, let's say for me, it's what works is like when I'm going to sleep, or if I'm awake in the night, I'll put it on. And I found, it's really important for me to tap into that every once in a while as a deeper reminder, so that on a more of a daily basis, I can just like remind myself to just hold my heart. I mean, even when I was talking to you, I was finding myself doing that. And that's a little unconscious behavior on my part. But yeah, sometimes it's just that that reminder. I also, this doesn't have to do with self-compassion necessarily, but another trick in a leadership class I took was, when you're in a meeting and you find yourself getting anxious or heated up, let's say, or this could be in a conversation at home, and you're maybe beginning to react, like, find your feet was the phrase that they gave me. If you're sitting down, just ground yourself, just find your feet. And it's like, it's that embodiment, it's stepping into your body. And I think putting my hand on my heart, like if my heart starts to race because I'm getting upset or something, it's like those little practices that bring us back into the present moment. And of course, for me, it always comes back to the breath. So I've had really wonderful yoga instructors who have taught me that your relationship to your breath is the only relationship you will have for your entire life. And think about that. Your relationship to your breath is the only relationship you'll have to your entire life. And so use your breath to calm yourself. Use your breath to center yourself. Come back to your breath. You can use breath work to really enhance all sorts of things, including, your immunity and your overall health. But it's simple as just brings you right back.
It's so true. And any tips that you have for our viewers watching us today?
Maybe just that. If you can come back to your breath, and if you can practice radical self-compassion, tell yourself you love yourself and mean it, that'll change your life. It really can.
I so agree with you, Deb, because, over the years, the people I've seen in therapy or in training sessions or any kind of workshops, the ones who literally make it a mission in life to first love themselves and focus on themselves are the ones who overcome all adversities that come their way. And then the journey of life feels beautiful. So, if you had one word to describe Deb, what would you choose?
Oh, that's really hard. Well, I was just in a leadership retreat with my leadership team, and we had to choose cards. And the one that I chose as the top of my pile was empathetic. So I would say that is one of my defining characteristics. Another was interconnected, but for me, they're kind of speak to the same, which is connection. So yeah, I'll land on connection.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Deb. It's just been wonderful listening to you and chatting with you. And thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Pragati. It was such a pleasure. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Bye.